Welcome to Casual Coffee Talk. This is Gabe, and I am on the topic of what it means and what it's like to be a writer. So, have you ever wanted to be a writer, write something like poetry, a story, or any creative writing, and get that published and out to people so they could see your work? Well, right now I actually have my friend Jason with me, who is a full-time writer, and he's going to go and answer some questions with us. So, welcome, Jason. Doing all right. How about yourself?
Pretty good.
Perfect. So, as far as being a writer, how long have you been doing it for?
I've been doing it full time for about probably 15 years, 16 years, and I've been writing before that like part time since probably the mid 90s.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
Got it. Wow, that's quite a long time.
Yeah, when I think about it, it's a lot longer than it feels.
Perfect. So, how did you get started in writing, actually? What's your story?
I've always liked stories, and when I was really little, my mom would read to me every night, and we would often read like fantasy stories. Like the first book she read me was The Hobbit.
Oh,
and
fun.
That started me on, like when she was done with that story, I wanted to read it again. So I kept asking to learn how to read, and I read at a pretty early age, so I could read that book myself, and then I moved on to Lord of the Rings. And eventually I wanted to like create my own stories.
Yes.
So even when I was just a little kid, I would write, little 1-page, 2-page stories, and I would often illustrate them myself. And then it just grew from there, and I never wanted to stop creating stories and finding different ways to use words.
So it just kind of felt natural to you then?
Yeah, it did. It felt like a natural extension of me. Like, I don't know what it would be like not to write. It would be like not breathing. Yeah, it's just a natural thing to try to create stuff.
Wow, that is fantastic. So, as far as being a writer, as a full-time gig or as a career, what would a typical day as a writer look like?
Well, it's going to vary from writer to writer. I'm sure there are some that have the stereotypical mythological life that you see in Hollywood, where they, write in a nice little cabin, or they have a lot of money and everything's nice. But
that's what I imagine too.
For most writers, you stay up way later than you should because your mind doesn't let you rest, and you can't always go to sleep because you have different ideas and stuff that you want to think of. So you roll out of bed maybe a little bit late if you're working full-time as a writer, and then you check your email. And for me, I work a lot of freelance stuff as well, so I have to look for the things clients might need, or things they might want changed or fixed in things I've written for them. So that's the first thing I have to deal with. And then I think about whatever freelance work I have to do for the day. Get that in my head. Then I go to the gym, where I kind of decompress and unwind for a while. Mm-hmm. Get back home, and then struggle to maintain focus for 8 to 12 to sometimes 15 or 16 hours to get everything done in a day.
Wow.
And then try to fall back asleep, but again the mind keeps racing and struggling, and you wake up late again the next day, and then it becomes a cycle like Groundhog's Day. And you're stuck in it for 20 years, and you don't realize how time has passed.
Got it. Wow. So you would say that you're kind of like in your own head a lot of times too, as far as just being a writer, since you always have to think of another idea too, right?
Yeah, people would tell me sometimes I'm in my head a little too much. It's not always a good thing to be in the head all the time. But
Got it.
It's good for developing story ideas, but not so much for social activities and relationships and stuff like that.
So as far as like decompressing, you mentioned the gym as well. What else do you like to do just to kind of get your mind out from, writer mode to back to yourself, Jason mode, I guess?
Oh, hiking is really good for that. Just going for walks is good for that. Reading helps. Reading nonfiction helps more.
Yes.
Because if I'm reading fiction, well, you know what? Even sometimes when I'm reading nonfiction, my mind still ends up going back to, how could I use this in a story? Boy, I hope my story's not too much like this. So sometimes it's hard to get back into my own head.
Got it. Wow. So you're kind of like whether you're thinking about it or not, you're almost always even subconsciously kind of like in writer mode a little bit, right?
There's always part of my brain that is taking notes for a scene or a character or something later, and I think that's common with most writers. I don't know if it's something I taught myself over the years or if it's something that was natural, but that's kind of the way my brain works now, for good or bad.
Hey, that's fine. You take a lot of ideas and you take what you like and add it to your own, right?
Yeah.
I think that's a great way as far as advancing yourself. As far as anybody who's looking into, becoming a writer or doing it full time or getting a little bit more serious about their skill or their craft, what would you say are some basic steps to getting started as a writer?
First thing is you have to read a lot. I've known people who said they want to be a writer, but they don't like to read at all. And that's really not going to work out well because you need experience and knowledge that you get through reading.
Yes.
To see how other people approach storytelling and the craft, to just to understand storytelling itself. So the first thing you want to do is you want to read a lot. You also want to just start writing. Don't overthink it too much. Have a story idea, even if it's not a good story idea. A lot of your first story ideas are not going to be good. They will have been done 1,000 times before, but the important thing is that you put in the effort and you tell a story and you learn how to put words together. You learn how to string words together and scenes together so they make sense and so they flow. And don't worry about making mistakes because you're going to make mistakes. And that brings me into the next thing. When you start to get stories that are decent, something in your head is going to tell you that the story is not finished.
Oh yeah.
You still have to keep going, and you have to fix this and this and this. Now, editing is good and editing is important, but there has to come a time when you can let it go. When you can say, this is as good as it can be for me right now. And then you have to send it off to maybe a short story market or to publish it yourself on Kindle or however else you plan to do it. But there has to come a time when you let it go.
I see. Yeah, to my understanding, especially with a lot of my friends who, are on the artistic side, they are one of, I guess, in my experience, what I've seen from them, they have a lot of them have a perfectionist kind of attitude. Is that common as far as writing too?
I think so. Yeah. Well, yeah. I mean, there is the other spectrum where people just pump out crap just for volume.
Yes.
But most people, I think, do have a perfectionist kind of attitude, and it's that way with like friends I know who paint, and I've done a little bit of music stuff, and it was that way for me with music, and everybody else I know who's in music is like, oh, this could be better, I could do this better, and you just get to the point where if you want to create, like, you're fiddling around, you're not creating and putting content out there. You got to get to the point where you create and let other people consume and enjoy it or hate it. And if they hate it, if they don't like it, that's okay too, because you can take whatever negative feedback they give you and try to learn from it. Like there's going to be some negative feedback that is just somebody being a terrible person, and that you can throw out.
Yes, happens all the time.
But there will be stuff that you can learn from too, like just little things. So look for the positives and the negatives, and don't let negative stuff get you down.
Oh, okay, that's a good way to look at it. I actually like your comparison with fiddling and actually creating. That's good. That's a good way to look at things.
Thanks.
Awesome. So I know that there's a lot of talk between which is better, publishing versus with a company versus self-publishing. What were your experiences with either or?
Well, I've done both. There are similarities and differences between them, and there are pros and cons for both of them. So I'll go over those real quick. And everybody's mileage may vary because everybody's going to have a different experience. Everybody has a different story to tell and a different path to take. So I can let you know what my path has shown me. So when I first started out, way back in the 90s, there was not really self-publishing. There was vanity publishing, which is always bad, because when you vanity publish, that means you're paying to be published, and the writer should never pay to be published.
Oh, wow.
Money should always flow to the writer.
Yes, That would be the most ideal, yes.
So when I first started and I was submitting to short story markets, that was really the only way to do it. The way that we would do is we would try to get short story credits and then maybe submit like a novella or a novel to a publisher. And that was really the only path. And then in the mid to late 2000s when Kindle started to become more prominent,
Yes.
and become a viable avenue, like ebooks became viable, self-publishing became more popular, and it became easier because the technology was readily available to anyone, which is good and bad, because it meant that, remember those writers I was talking about who would just push out crap?
Yes.
They're still around, and they're just pushing crap out on Kindle and Nook and
Oh
all
boy.
that. So it can crowd the marketplace. Now, generally, the cream will rise to the top. Not always.
Yeah.
So even with the glut of stuff that's maybe not great, you can still do well on Kindle. And the other online ebook platforms. But it's you have to put a lot of promotion in. Now, with publishing through a regular company today,
Yes.
you still have to put a lot of your own promotion in once they sign you. When it comes to the amount of money that you're going to make, it can vary. Stephen King could make money no matter where he publishes or how he publishes. He could publish a story on rolls of paper towels sold at 99-cent stores exclusively, and he could still make money. With self-publishing, you're going to be able to set your own prices on the books, so you can make more that way than you would from a publisher. Like a publisher, maybe you get 15 or 20 or 25% royalties.
Okay.
But with self-publishing, you can basically set your own price, and your royalties are the amount you get from each copy sold is going to be higher.
Yes.
However, you might not have as many copies sold when you self-publish.
Yeah.
So the money might equal out. And again, it really depends on. It depends a lot on luck.
Oh wow.
A lot is unfortunate, but a lot of writing is luck based. Not the writing itself, but the success afterwards.
I see.
So there, I can't really suggest either way to somebody to go traditional or to go through Kindle or one of the other platforms, because I think everybody should research the options that they have before them based on the type of writing that they're doing, and make their own decision, but be willing to do either. Don't commit fully to one. Don't have all your eggs in one basket. Be able to do multiple things.
Wow.
Like publish through multiple avenues. I think that's probably the best way. I have moderate success with my fiction. Some years better than others, depending on how prolific I am. And I've found that I tend to get more, and it's weird, I tend to get more recognition when I've gone through regular publishers, but I tend to make a bit more money with self-published stuff. And I'm trying to figure out why. That's still a mystery to me. I don't know.
Wow, so there's some sort of balance there that people just have to kind of find themselves.
They have to find their own balance, I think. And I do think it should be a balance. I think they should try both and see what works best for them. Like, some people might be really, really good at marketing, so if they can market themselves really well, then self-publishing might be the route to go, because they can thrive in that area.
Yeah.
And you still have to do some self-publishing with a regular publisher. It's just a self-promotion with a regular publisher, but they can help guide you a bit more on that.
Okay.
Whereas it's not completely going in blind as long as you're working with a good publisher.
Yes. Okay, so you actually have some sort of guidance while you're doing it.
Generally, yeah.
Okay. Yeah, that's definitely helpful for a lot of people who are just starting out too, or who, like you mentioned, don't really have any experience in marketing. That's great.
Yeah.
So I know that there are some concerns about, let's say, there's a lot of writers that they feel they made a fantastic, amazing piece. But because we live in the digital age, a lot of people are scared that their ideas might get stolen, or someone might use their idea and use it for their own. As far as that goes, what are some things to be careful of as an aspiring writer, or things to watch out for when it comes to having content stolen?
Yeah, it is actually a problem. It's more of a problem than I ever thought it would be. Because when I was starting out, plagiarism and stuff would happen occasionally, but
Yes.
it wasn't really too much of a problem. At least not for me that I knew about at the time. But now, like you were saying, with everything being digital, it has become much more problematic in a bunch of different ways. I've known a bunch of people who have had their stories stolen,
Oh no.
and getting the stuff. You can get the stuff taken down from different sites, but
Yes.
it tends to be a hassle. You can go after people who've done this, like legally you can go after them, but it tends to be costly to do
Yeah.
that. If you are self-publishing, it tends to be more of a problem. If you're through a regular publisher, it can still be an issue, but the publishers themselves can take care of it, whereas
Okay.
they have a legal team and you probably don't. So
Yeah, lawyers aren't exactly cheap.
yeah, so they can do that. Now, personally, I have had everything I've ever written has been taken by different sites online,
Yeah.
like torrent sites and stuff, and is given away for free. Not by me, but by other people who take it. They take the content and they put it up to give away to people. Absolutely everything that I've ever written.
Wow.
That has been done too. And that's been over the past 10 years since technology has gotten to that point where it's possible. And these sites, like as soon as one gets shut down, another one pops up.
Oh yeah.
Like if I were to look up my name in a certain story I wrote, I can almost guarantee that one of the first sites that's going to pop up is going to be one of those pirate sites where my stuff just gets taken.
Yeah, and someone would be able to download it for free.
So I'm
Wow.
not going to lie to people. It is a possibility that this is going to happen to their stuff. Even if they, like when you write something, it automatically becomes copywritten to you.
Yeah.
You don't have to fill out any forms or paperwork. It's automatically copywritten. Proving the copyright is another thing.
Oh, okay.
You have to prove that you had written it at a certain date.
Yeah.
And the best way to do that is to have it registered through the Copyright Office. I think that's where you go.
He's funny though.
The Copyright Office is the way to go for that. But even when you do have the copyright, it can still be hard to enforce because you have to have an attorney who's working with you in most cases against this other person, and you need to have more money than that person does in order to scare them with your lawyer. And at that point, you have to weigh the decision, like, is my short story or novel going to be able to make enough money to pay for my attorney costs? If not, is it worth it?
Okay, so that becomes a battle with your wallet then at that point.
You have
Wow.
to figure out whether it's worth it or not. And it can be a little bit disheartening, but don't let it scare you away from writing.
Yeah.
Just write the best thing you can and find your audience, and people will pay for it. And there will be jerks who steal it, but they aren't part of your core audience anyway.
Yeah.
So just write and hope for the best.
And just kind of accept that that's kind of part of the game.
Unfortunately, today it is. And I don't know when that's going to change, if it ever will.
No, I hear you. All right. So as far as new writers and people who are just getting started, what is, in your whole experience, whether it's specific or very general, what is the best piece of advice that you could give to an aspiring writer?
Just start writing. Have your story, start it, and the most important part is to finish the story.
Yeah.
That's where a lot of new writers and wannabe writers have a problem. And it's where I still have a problem with a lot of stories that I begin.
Yeah.
Is I'm very excited about them in the beginning, but the excitement starts to wane 3/4 through, and I'm like, well, I've got this other idea for a story, so I can start this. So you end up having like 4 or 5 stories or novels started, and you never finish them.
Oh boy.
So the most important advice, I think, is to start and then finish a project before you move on to another one. And once you finish it, remember that eventually you got to let it go and put it out there for other people to enjoy. So the best advice is to get into the process. Start, finish, submit.
I like that. Short, simple, and sweet.
Yeah.
That is fantastic. All right, so that's everything. So thank you so much, Jason. Is there anything that you'd like to tell our listeners?
I do have a new website where I'm collecting pretty much everything that I do and have done. It is called rollforgeek.com. That's ROLLFORGEEK.com. And it focuses right now mainly on tabletop role-playing, like Dungeons and Dragons and stuff, which is the greatest game in the world.
Absolutely, I agree with you too. It's awesome.
Yeah, so it focuses on that, and I'm also going to have links to some of the writing that I've done and stuff there. And I want everything kind of focused through that site, because I think that's going to show the core of who I am and all the stuff that I enjoy, and I plan to incorporate all that into the site. So if people want to learn more, they can go there.
All right, perfect. Okay, so that is everything. Thank you so much for being on Casual Coffee Talks, and we'll see you guys next time. Thank you, Jason.
You are welcome.